Welcome all to another panel discussion on GCC as a capability hub. GCC are rapidly shifting from execution unit to strategic capability hub. They're driving AI adoption, building future-ready talent, and creating a real business impact. Today's panel will explore how GCC are redefining their purpose and strengthening the enterprise group. To put more highlights and keys into it, we welcome our esteemed panel member to speak on this. The very first thing I would like to invite Siddiq Ahmed. He's a senior learning and development strategic leader with 10 plus years of experience transforming global training operations for learning and development workforce at Tech Mahindra BPS. He's driven major innovations including Game On, an AI-powered workforce capability intelligence platform. He's also designed the 36 service catalog, strengthening enterprise learning readiness and capability acceleration. Please welcome Siddiq.
Hey, hi guys.
Welcome, Prakash Thakur. Our next panel who is a transformation leader with 22 years across shared service, BPO, and ITS. Is currently leading quality process excellence, customer experience, global transitions at Skidler, India. He has led impactful Lean Six Sigma automations and improvement projects that enhance the business performance. This champions AI-led process transformations and future-ready talent, the capability shaping for the next generations in GCCs. Please welcome Mr. Prakash Thakur.
Thank you, Suju. Hello, everyone.
I welcome Rohini Dey, who is a dynamic HR leader with 20 plus years of experience in cross-border experience in HR strategy, learning design, leadership development, and cultural building. She specializes in creating role-based learning path, leadership pipeline, strong learning culture across diverse industries. She believes in building employee-first organization with sustainable, thriving cultures at the core. Please welcome Rohini Dey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here.
Welcome Mr. Keshav R. Khama, who is an IIM Calcutta certified HR professional with 17 years of multi-industry experience across HR business partnering, employee relations, and talent acquisition. Has played a key role in expanding GCC's leading M&A efforts and shaping culture, compensation, and policy across global companies. Is now building a personalized mentorship platform using a conversational AI, showing his passion for helping people to grow beyond the workforce. Please welcome Mr. Keshav R. Kama.
Thank you, Sidhu, and hello, everyone.
Well, we know that without a moderator, we cannot take this further. So I'm welcoming our moderator, Mr. Ramani Avdesh Gupta, who is a national training manager at Niva Bupa with 17 years of experience in capability building, leadership development, digital learning, and learning transformation. He's built a business-aligned learning ecosystem, launched Help XP, and developed a future-ready talent pipeline across the leading insurance organization. Is passionate about AI embedded learning capability development and measuring the learning impact to accelerate the business and talent growth. Please welcome Mr. Romani Gupta.
Thank you so much, Iju. Hey, hi everyone. Good afternoon.
Well, Romani is all yours. The platform is yours. We can take it ahead. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Siju. So, hey, hi everyone, the people who have connected virtually across the country, and my esteemed panel speakers. Already, Siju has given a great introduction about these people. So, today it is not just another panel discussion. This is something wherein our speakers would be sharing their experience, their learning, how they have transformed several organizations. So, my friends, my colleagues, please make a note. This will not come again. I'm sure Siju would be sharing some insights on YouTube link as well, LinkedIn, but please make this 90 minutes yours. Yeah. So that's a commitment from our side, your side. On that note, let us start this great GCC as capability hub, driving AI-led transformation, talent innovation, and business impact. Yeah. So let me give you a brief. There would be four segments, and to make our speakers' life not kind of easier. We have kept 4 segments, one question each for that speaker, right? So I am telling you, I'm promising you, this would be the most exciting panel discussion today you ever have attended before. Yeah, I can bet that. I can promise you on that. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, my esteemed speaker, joining this panel discussion. So let me give you one example which everyone can relate here. So maybe 15 years back, 20 years back, when we think about mobile, yeah, keypad mobile. So that time the thought was, this is just for calling, texting, message, that's it, you know. But now in 2026, the mobile is classroom. The mobile is learning. Mobile is everything. You think about anything that is there on mobile. People fight on mobile. People express on mobile. Am I correct? Do you all will agree? So the way mobile has transformed in last 15 years, in the same way, GCCs have undergone a very similar transformation. They were once known only for execution, cost efficiency, but today, my friends, they are innovation hubs creating strategic business value. So let's explore that and let us go ahead with this great panel discussion. So the first segment is from execution centers to strategic capability hub. And my first question goes to Siddiqui. So my friend Siddiqui, over the last decade, and I think you will agree with me, what do you think has been the biggest reason GCCs have evolved from execution centers into strategic capability hub? Your thoughts on this point, please, Siddiqui.
Okay, interesting question, isn't it? See, so GCCs, if you have to go, slightly away and take 2 steps backward, GCCs were primarily set up as a cost arbitrage, right? So that they can shift certain, type of work instead of shifting it outside an organization. Okay, we set up an extended arm of our own organization offshore, right, and get things executed, right? But that was a initial play why GCCs started, isn't it? Then post that, right? Especially when GCCs land in India, okay, India changes a lot of stuff, right? So number one, uh, our education system, right, creates a lot more engineers than any other country in the world. I think we would be the second next to China, right? But we also have another advantage of understanding global audience due to our inclination to English, isn't it? So that creates an added layer. Then the next one that happens, in India for everyone is we are more tech inclined country, especially the educated crowd is more tech inclined, wherein we just are not satisfied with version 1 of anything, right? We always try to figure out, okay, what could be the next version, what should be the next version, can I be a part of that? A lot of people get involved deep in researching that, right? That changes from the cost arbitrage story to how can we change this into a real capability center, right? That changes and the narrative changes, and how can this capability evolve? And with the advent of technology changes, that happened drastically, and availability of skilled people, skilled youngsters especially, right? The whole game changes. So I think that would be the reason why we are transforming how we are executing or how we are running GCC itself, right? But what would be the what has been the biggest catalyst? And I would have to use the word very carefully. But okay, India has been the culture or the inclination towards learning, right, and capability building culture of India that has been one of the important catalyst, right, in transforming right from an execution center to a strategic capability hub. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much, Siddiqui. Like that's a great point. The way you explain the evolution has happened and the way you connected to Indian perspective. Like there is something with every Indians. It goes learning never goes away. So thank you so much for giving that perspective. Maybe so. Thank you, Siddiqui. So let me take this ahead. And my friends, the people who are connected virtually, see, there is a very small chat option there. Please keep throwing your thoughts. What's your view there? Let's keep putting your thought. Don't stop yourself by typing your expressions there. Yeah, thank you so much for that. So my next question goes to Prakash. So, Prakash, see, this is something very, very critical, which even I would be interested to hear your point of view on this. Like, how can knowledge management and quality help GCCs become true innovation and capability hub? Yeah, what's your thought on this?
Yeah. So now, Romani, building on what Siddiqui said, right? So let me start with a simple reframe. For years, knowledge management and quality were seen as the guardians of consistency. Make sure the process is followed, make sure the SOP is updated, make sure the audit passes. So that mindset, built process excellent and it served us well. But it will not build an innovation hub. So there are, three shifts which makes the difference. The first one is from documentation to intelligence. Knowledge management has to stop being a library and start being a learning engine. Every escalation, every customer insight, every process deviation is a raw material for improvement. And when we capture and analyze that systematically, knowledge stops sitting in repositories and starts driving decisions. Okay. The second shift is the from compliance to capability. So quality's job is no longer just to catch defects. It's to build people who prevent them. So when Lean Six Sigma thinking becomes everyone's toolkit rather than a specialist certificate, you have actually converted a control function into a capability function, right? And the third shift is from service delivery to solution design. So once knowledge and quality data are connected, the GCC can go to the business proactively and say, here is a friction point we have spotted across 3 geographies. And here is a redesign process or an AI use case. So that removes it. That's the moment you graduate from execution center to innovation partner. Okay. So the transition that you see here in one line is that process excellence tells you how well you are running today's business, right? And knowledge and quality done right tells you what tomorrow's business should look like. Okay. So
Yeah,
that's my
wow,
view.
Prakash. Yeah. Matlab, what a way. I'm just giving you a high five. Just take it virtual high five from my side. Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah. So the way you explained raw material, matlab, what else we can expect in a panel discussion could be as simplified as you just said, Prakash. So hey, hi everyone. I'm just waiting for your messages. Like if you liked anyone's thought, your observation, what are those one point you are liking which you will take home as a message to yourself? Please put those messages in that chat bar. So let's go ahead. So we are still on segment one, wherein we are talking about how GCCs have from execution center, they have went to a strategy capability hub. So my next question, yeah, matlab, again, this is a very interesting question and I will invite Kashyap for this question. So Kashyap, how can GCC leaders see? We talk so much about capability. But my question is, how can GCC leaders demonstrate value beyond cost saving. Because whenever we talk about AI, when we talk about capability, talent development, the first thing people ask, cost saving, operational cost. This is something the discussion happens generally what I've seen in the industry. So my question to you is how can GCC leaders demonstrate value beyond cost savings and operational excellence? Your thoughts on this question?
I think interesting question, Ramani. But my colleagues Prakash and Siddiqui have already answered it. But let me see what interestingly I can actually answer. So over the last decade, if you look at it, Ramani and team, cost was only merely an entry ticket, but not the real differentiator. The real differentiator is, are we able to solve the real business problems? That is where the real differentiator is, right? So I would like to focus upon three different areas rather than just answering in one stream, right? First and foremost, people will have to come out of their domains. For example, I cannot say that I'm an HR leader, I'm a tech leader, I'm a training leader, right? Because the domain has already become their sort of muscle memory. It's already there in their muscle memory, basically, right? So things will get executed. So they have to come out of those particular issues and start thinking about the business first and foremost. When you start thinking about the business, that is where ideas will generate. That is where you'll actually start contributing beyond your domain. That is the first thing that I would like to touch upon. And second thing is like building capabilities, right? Like building researchers and building experts. A simple example is when the generative AI was just evolving, right? There are some companies who already adopted agentic AI, right? So similarly, I think it's important that people start thinking about advanced analytics or probably quantum computing right now, right? So that you're actually prepared. So the technology is actually available right now, and the moment a client, probably the GCC stakeholder asks you, you have the knowledge available with you, right? And last but not least, you know, have measures that are outcome based instead of activities, right? Rather than telling that, hey, listen, we closed so many tickets, we achieved so much of quality, right? Link it to customer experience, right? Link it to like innovation, right? Link it to strategy led decision making. So GCC leaders will have to look at all these three angles. Okay, enough of HR Giri that I've actually done. Now I really need to look at business, what exactly I could do, right? And second most bit is start building competencies, start doing that bit of research. And lastly, have meaningful outcomes. So if you start clubbing all these three things, I mean, I think you will keep getting invites from GCC leaders for planning discussions rather than execution discussions, Ramani. Yeah, that's my take.
Hey, thanks, Kashyap. So when you were saying about ki come out from that domain, so I can reconnect one famous movie. I'm sure you must have
Yeah,
watched, and my friends also, Chak De India. So it says,
absolutely.
पहले देश के लिए खेलो,
Exactly.
फिर टीम के लिए खेलो, फिर
Or
कुछ
that
है,
is what they have
then
to
अपने
play it
लिए
for
खेलो.
people. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So that
Absolutely
was the
right.
example which you quoted. Ki sometimes it happens in the organization. We are so much focused in our domain, we miss what is organization looking for.
Precisely. Precisely.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for giving that perspective. Thank you so much.
Indeed.
So we are into the fourth question of our segment one, and already it is building, my friends. The way discussion is happening. Yeah. So my fourth question in the segment one goes to Rohini. So, Rohini, we talk about how this evolution has happened. We talk about knowledge management, quality. Then Mr. Kashyap does something about how, as a leader, they can demonstrate which is beyond cost saving. So, my question to you is, what capability should GCCs invest today to remain relevant? Because see, this is something wherein I have heard many times in the industry that this will go away, this will wave off, these skills won't be there, this capability won't be there. So, what capability should GCCs invest in today to remain relevant and become innovation partners over the next few years, maybe 5 years?
Perfect. Thank you for the question. I'm absolutely enjoying everybody else's responses as a audience here. So I'm just going to build on it because already my colleagues have presented some interesting, notes here. So when I look at next couple of years, I'm also looking at the past couple of years, so a traditional way of how training and development or L&D would function and what needs to change. So we adopt and we are able to transition through all these evolving changes that's happening. So one of the things that really stands out for me is evolving from being a capability provider to becoming a capability architect. Now, I know Prakash already touched upon being a solution design, and then Kashyap also talks about, how we have to create business value. So these things are extremely important. And what do we do as L&D on the ground to make these changes? I'm not really looking at training calendars anymore. But in my view, the capability building has to have a different approach than a calendar. So we have to look at it from a business capability framework, wherein we are talking about skills, technology, we are talking about leadership depth or a talent model. So basically we are looking at future skills and validating where everybody is today, so we are able to bridge those skills rather than always coming up with newer skills. The bridging skills become important. Secondly, for me personally, it's important that in the AI influence world, we need to look at ownership. And how do we create that ownership within people, and how do we build capabilities and build businesses for the next couple of years, keeping that in mind. So when we build AI fluency, we are looking at practical use cases. So these are some of the challenges that I see today, which are so important to build as a foundation and a framework for the next couple of years. That are we using practical use cases? What is the data discipline that we have? How strong is the human judgment? I think I will continue to, explore more into data and human judgment as well. So as an enterprise, this entire end-to-end outcome is what is going to be important when we cascade it, from headquarters to down to other functions as well. Even within InfoVision, when we are looking at AI adoption, we are looking at overall the confidence that people have, and how purposefully we are resolving client or business context. So that has been very important for us. So from L&D, a typical playbook has to mature, that we don't really want to be order takers, that this is what we need and this is the calendar. So we have to move out of that, definitely. And we have to move out or transition out of generic technical skills, so that we are building actual capability academies, real business problems are resolved, and leaders and experts are co-creating programs. So we keep everything relevant, we keep everything in-house, and that definitely is something of a value creation for me from a global point of view, as well as enterprise innovation.
Wow, Roni, the way you said it should flow from headquarters, like what great we can expect if it is coming from the headquarters, from the HOD, right? So just wanted to share my friends, colleagues, everyone who are connected, ki in my one of the organization, as even Rohini said, ki generally when we talk about skills, so people, they have those limited type of skills which keeps on coming. So what that organization does, they did a POC kind of thing. Ki, see, role will only evolve. It will not change. It will evolve. Some skills will go away. Some skills would be added. So a kind of they integrated one AI tool, and there was a kind of role play. They were talking to that robot, and robot was saying, ki, your role after 5 years will look like this, and these are the skills you should be focusing on. As rightly pointed out by Rohini, ki if this is coming from the leaders, the frontline team will follow that. So thank you so much for giving that perspective. So my team, the people who are connected virtually, any thoughts? Any thoughts till now? A poll is running there. Please put your vote there, cascade your vote there. Any thoughts? Anyone, just put your thoughts on that chat bar. Soon we are moving to segment two, the interesting segment. Now we are moving to part two, wherein we'll be talking on AI, automation, and digital transformation, which has happened in GCC. Now, my friends, AI is no longer a future concept. It has already transforming the way GCC is working. It's no longer a future concept now. From automation and productivity to decision making and giving customer experience, AI is shaping every function, whether it is HR, marketing, your operations, your sales, everywhere it is impacting. But while technology is advancing rapidly, organizations also need to ensure about people, about skill, and governance evolving alongside it. So we are moving into segment two, which talks about AI, automation, digital transformation. So my question goes to Mr. Kashyap. So Mr. Kashyap, AI is becoming part of almost
Then begin
every
to end.
business function, and I will tell you it is there with not only business function but in personal function as well. Right when we wake up, when we go to the bed, AI is everywhere. So from your experience, where do you see AI creating the biggest value for GCCs? And where do you believe human judgment will always remain essential? Your thought on this?
So, I mean, before I move into the AI, okay, I would like to actually talk about two interesting terms that we use day in, day out, right? I mean, those are, efficiency and effectivity, right? So I would actually answer this from an organizing behavior perspective, or probably from that study. Example, Kashyap is doing a good job. That is efficiency. When I say Kashyap is doing what is good, that is effectivity. If I really have to look at it, correct? So while AI efficiency is there, but you also need human intelligence. And when you combine both of them, that is when meaningful decisions come, right? So though AI is actually reducing repetitive work on a daily basis, but there are things like empathy, leadership, counseling, like difficult conversations. It still needs people. AI cannot actually do those particular things again. Rather, that is one of my ambition and aim to make an interactive and humanized AI platform. I don't know when I'll achieve it, but I think you have to combine both the efficiency of AI and the effectivity of human intelligence. And that is when I think AI can actually prosper. And rather than, you hear the statement, right? AI is replacing people who use AI. I mean, I really don't believe that. I think AI will actually create more jobs, right? When you apply the efficiency and also add the human effectivity. That's my bit, Ramani.
Kashyap, I like that one word you said. So there is a theory going around the world. AI is going to replace human being. So maybe just adding to what you just said, Kashyap, like if you can just add, how do you strike the right balance between AI and human intelligence? Your thoughts on this, like just an addition to what you just said. How you strike that balance?
See, again, it's sort of, see, for example, AI can actually generate what I want, right? But the decision is still with me, right? Whether I wanted to post it, I wanted to use it, right? So again, AI for whom? AI for humans, end of the day, right? AI is not to AI, right? AI to humans, basically. So though it is actually doing its bit, but this, the decision completely lies with me whether I want to use it or not, and that's how I balance it. And sometimes I use AI scripts, sometimes I don't use AI script, sometimes I teach AI that this is not what it is, right? Sometimes I tell I ask AI, can you please give me in my style, right? Sometimes it gives in this way, at times it exaggerates, at times it doesn't, right? I think the balance is, the control is still with me, the person is
Right.
actually using AI, right? And when the control goes to AI, I think humans are not will not be existing. I think all will die, and the control moves to AI, basically. And the purpose of AI doesn't exist only because there are no humans.
True. That's great perspective, Kashyap. So while AI can improve speed and efficiency, human capabilities remain equally important. Thank you so much for
Yes,
that point, Kashyap. Yeah.
indeed.
So in this continuation, this is something very interesting, and I will love to hear the thought on this second question from Rohini. So, Rohini, this is something which I think you all will agree with me. Now, what has happened with this AI tool? If anything's come, the first thing as a user, what we do, we just go on those AI tool and just we put those prompt and story, and we wait for responses. So maybe my next question is, as AI adoption has accelerated in some last 5 years, 10 years, how can organizations ensure employee continue to build uniquely human capabilities such as creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and innovation? Maybe somewhere these capabilities are fading away. So your thought on this?
Thank you, Ramani. I think this is a very critical question, and I'm going to just continue building on what Kashyap already voiced, because that is, I think we need to keep that as a center of whatever we do with AI, because the risk is with AI is not that it's only simplifying and replacing human thinking, but the deeper risk is gradually we are stopping to exercise the human thinking, because AI is giving us instant question responses in the moment. So the unique capabilities that you spoke about, whether it's creativity, critical thinking, and resilience or empathy, for example, must be developed with an intention. That intention is very important in the organization because they cannot be left to happen organically. Because in the world of AI, if that intention is not there in L&D, I think it's going to be very important, because as AI absorbs more of the repetitive work, organizations have to create a deliberate space for people to interpret and challenge and also not only challenge each other, but also challenge AI. We need to continue to do that. And that connection has to be built. So while this may look simple, it's important that we need to help people practice more, especially create that muscle of structured debates or a scenario thinking. We do that in a lot of today's leadership programs or in soft skills, behavioral skills, and I think that needs to continue. While we have programs of AI that's coming up, we need to continue to have the structure where we are able to involve employees to comfortably have the challenges put across and exercise judgment. So also in Infovision, we have something called a mentoring program or a coaching circle or a peer-to-peer forum. These programs help us have human connects also. While, within that group, they are still talking about some of the conversations around AI. But this is very important for us to make sure that we are sharpening the questions. We are constantly collaborating more effectively. We are cutting down on conflicts while we are building more resilience. So these are very important judgments or decisions for us to also count. I'll also share one of the research that I read from Harvard Business School recently on human AI collaboration. So which talks about AI supporting solutions can enhance quality and business value, but human judgment is important for guidance and process development. So we still need to have that reinforcement that we have to constantly amplify human thinking, and that's not something we want to replace. So my belief is that AI can accelerate productivity and overall it can create a lot of importance, but we need to continue to create that critical thinking as a muscle intentionally. That is very important, that there has to be a deliberate space within our L&D, within our organizations, so that the gap is not created. And this is very important. Otherwise, we are going to have lack of intentional development. So this is a balance that we need to bring, and that brings that uniqueness in the entire concept of L&D. Back to you,
Thank you so
Ramani.
much. Yeah, thank you so much, Roni, on that. So, my friends and maybe my panel speaker can vouch on this. So, when you talk with any AI tool itself says, please don't rely on me. I can make mistake. Yeah. So there was a time I remember when we started our career, maybe you also, our bosses manager used to say ki whenever you send any email, please just click on that grammar, spelling. But now what is happening with this, with those AI tool, we just blindly depend on what they are saying and we just forward it without doing the recheck. So that, thank you so much for giving that perspective, Rohini. It is important. AI is focusing on productivity. At the same time, we should not be losing our creativity, innovation stuff also. So thank you so much for giving that perspective. Let's move ahead, my friends. We are into just segment 2, and already this panel discussion is picking up. Yeah, we are moving to now third question, and I will invite Siddiqui here. Your thought, like we talk about human being part of with collaboration with AI and human being. When you talked about something we should not be completely depending on that, we should be focusing human aspect as well. So if you can share, Mr. Siddiqui, if you can share some practical examples where AI has improved productivity, decision making, or maybe customer experience within your GCC, if you just want to share.
Understood. I'll share some experiences that I had, and and how we were able to do certain things within Tech Mahindra to make certain changes, and how it impacted me and my team, and the organization, in fact. So first thing first, right? So we are all limited by the amount of knowledge that we have, right? And where does this knowledge come from? Either we should be reading books, right? Or we should be reading research papers, or we should be going and sitting and taking multiple case studies and working on it, or we'll have to listen to someone who's very knowledgeable and take it, right? These are some limitations. And considering the amount of time that we have on a daily basis, right, some of these things are not completely possible, to be done, that we can plug out ourselves and go do all these things and import the knowledge into our head, right? Now, this is one important place where we can take help of AI to augment the knowledge gap that we have to what we wanted to do, right? So I always keep working on some research documents that I create using AI. I would ask AI, not directly give a prompt and ask, I work like if I meet my, let's say, my teacher or my professor or my father, right? I would not go ask directly one question and get an answer and walk away, right? I would rather figure out, is there a way by which I can squeeze more information by slowly having conversation, building out to the question that I wanted to ask rather than directly throwing that question on their face, right? Then I'll figure out uh, okay, what is the outcome, right? So I take the same approach with AI as well, right? I don't directly write prompts, rather I'll have conversations. For example, I'm from learning and development, right? I work on automating content development, right? We use AI for content development. So I'll give you one example, right? So I constantly keep asking at least once in 3 months, sit with AI. I'll ask, okay, how does the future look? Okay, these are the things that we are doing, and these are. Can you go, do some market research, do some study from, let's say, Gartner, McKinsey reports and things like that, and figure out what is the future coming up to, right? What is in store for the future, and how would this particular industry or how would this particular role change, right? And then I'll have conversations like, what should a person learn to reach that particular point, and then what are the disadvantage of this person taking up that role, right? I'm not asking the question yet, right? At the end of all these conversation, now what I have done is I've trapped AI into a box stating it has already given me a lot of information. Okay, now I'll ask it, now with all this information that you gave, right, now create a research document in the style of this particular research document, let's say, right? Let's say for this example, I'll use, okay, McKinsey style, okay, research document. Then what happens is it's able to consolidate whatever that we discussed plus extra things and create a great research document, right? I can further refine it, I can further review it and things like that. So this is a method I take, or this is a process that I follow. And I'm trying to do two things here, right? If you look at it, one, I'm trapping AI into a box, right? And two, I'm trying to augment my knowledge that I don't have time to read all the research documents. So you go read it, but then you tell me for my function, how would it look like in the future? Let's say if I want to mention a 5 year, right, 10 years and things like that is way too much right now. 5 year, right? Then I can even ask AI to do calculations. For example, how much investment should we make if we have to implement these core concepts discussed in the research document, right? It can help me with that. It can help me with, okay, can you put some dummy data? If an organization has 20 people or 100 people, what will this calculation become, right? I can create a financial model of how much investment can we make, and how much of output or outcome will that drive, right? All these things can be done using AI, right? So if you look at it, right, for preparing for this panel discussion, I did sit and prepare on understanding, what are the things. But trust me, I just take it as my input, but I go on my own from my head, right? But I would still appreciate AI because it has given me certain insights and certain thought process that I would have not got if I come and stand up here and just try to answer the question. I would have not got it, right? So that insight building, that filling the gap between what we know to what we can know, right? That's one of the major advantage and practical use. And when you do this, you can apply it in any field, right? You want to apply it in content development, data analytics, you want to apply it in business building, you can do it everywhere. It is just the process that you need to master.
Yeah, thanks, Siddiqui. First of all, like showing your muscle to AI tool, wherein I like the one thing which you said, ki instead of just giving prompt, have a conversation. The more the conversation you do, your creativity, your innovation will come. So it won't be like I'm entirely depending on the AI. I'm just using AI as a tool for maybe for my insight or other things. Thank you so much, Siddiqui, and with sharing your personal experience, how you are utilizing that AI. So those are some excellent examples. However, we are into now fourth question of segment two. AI creates and consumes more knowledge. One important question remains: how do we ensure that knowledge stays reliable and trusted? So my question to Prakash, as AI automates routine tasks, so we have seen that routine task has been shifted to AI. How do knowledge services and quality teams ensure organizational knowledge remains accurate, accessible, and continuously updated? Your thought on that?
So this is, in my view, the defining question of the AI era for our, functions, because AI is only as good as, the knowledge it runs on. So if your knowledge base is outdated, your AI confidently, automates yesterday's mistakes at scale. So, the role of knowledge, service, and quality actually becomes more strategic as, automation grows and not less. So there are, like, four things that matters. The first one is treat knowledge like a product and not a repository. So every critical knowledge, asset needs an owner, a review cycle, and a retirement date. So we govern our, financial data rigorously. Our knowledge deserves the same discipline because AI now consumes it directly. And the second thing is build the human in the loop deliberately. So as AI handles routine work, quality teams should shift from inspecting transactions to auditing the knowledge and the algorithms behind them. So sampling AI outputs, validating source content, and closing the loop on the exceptions. That's the new quality frontier. The third thing is to capture knowledge at a moment of exception. So the routine work AI observes was never when the richest knowledge lived anyway. So it lives in the exceptions, the judgment calls humans still make, right? So we need lightweight mechanisms to capture that reasoning in the flow of work. So expertise doesn't walk out the door. And the last thing that matters is make accuracy measurable. So knowledge health needs its own KPIs, currency of content, findability, usage, and the defect rate of AI answers traced back to the source content. So what gets measured stays accurate. So the headline is that AI doesn't reduce the need for knowledge and quality stewardship. It raises the stakes because errors now propagate at machine speed. I will just give an example, a practical example, if you allow me, Ramnani, just for a minute. When we introduced an AI assistant to support our service teams, the pilot exposed something valuable, a noticeable share of unsatisfactory AI responses traced back not to the technology but to the outdated or a duplicate knowledge articles it was drawing from. So we ran a focused knowledge remediation sprint and rationalized the content, assigned owners, and we set the review SLAs. So answers, and the answer accuracy improved dramatically without touching the AI itself. So the lesson stuck with everyone was that we did not have an AI problem. We had a knowledge hygiene problem. And since then, knowledge health checks are a standing gate before any automation goes live. So I will just close this by saying that AI at scale forgives nothing. Clean knowledge is the new clean data.
Wow, Prakash. Right from Rohini telling ki it should come from leadership, Siddiqui sharing ki build a conversation, Kashyap telling ki how human itself is a critical aspect in this AI. And I have making my note, my friends, I'm telling you, we will pay a lakhs of rupees, but we will not get these insights. The way Prakash just said, I've just mentioned that he treat knowledge as a product. Wow, what a perspective. What a way to think about that. Yeah. Then he said something, build human deliberately. What a thought. Collaborating AI and human. Wow. And the third part, which touched my heart, is like capture knowledge at the time of inception. Wow. And the last one, and make accuracy measurable. What else we need when we are building a capability? So thank you so much, Prakash, for giving those beautiful insights. I'm sure the people connected, they will make a note of that. And I'm sure we will be utilizing wherever we are working as of now. So let's move to now most
One
interesting
thing.
segment. Hello.
So what you just said, with all these four, there's another important thing called as, self-inquiry. So self-inquiry to
Yes.
yourself first, whether you're convinced or not. If you are convinced, that's okay. First of all, I getting convinced is 90%, and rest of the world I can definitely convince, because when I'm convinced, that means I have all the logics. Self-inquiry
Yes.
and convincing ourselves first. So there ends the there ends the meal basically.
True, true, true. Thank you so
Agree.
much for that. So now we are moving to the most critical part of this today's panel discussion, wherein organization, they are talking about this from so many decades, and I'm sure this will happen in next few decades as well. So we are moving to segment three, which talks about building future ready talent and leadership pipeline. This is something every organization they're having discussion. So future ready GCCs are built on strong talent, continuous learning and leadership depth. As rules evolve and technology transform works, our focus must be, everyone's focus must be on building capability, sharing knowledge, and preparing our next generation of leaders. So I will invite once again Prakash here, like how can knowledge sharing framework, communities of practice, and quality excellence initiatives accelerate capability building and leadership readiness within GCC? If you can just throw some light on this.
So, I would argue, these three knowledge frameworks, communities of practice, and quality initiatives are the most underrated leadership academies inside any GCC. Formal training builds awareness, and these builds capability because people learn by solving real problems, with real stakes. And let me unpack that by saying that communities of practice create leaders before titles do. So when someone steps up to a lead a community, curating knowledge, facilitating sessions, mentoring peers across teams, they are the practicing in influence without authority. And this is precisely the muscle global leadership demands. And you can spot future leaders by watching who thrives in these spaces, right? Second is quality initiatives are live leadership simulations. So every lean six sigma project asks someone to define a problem, rally a cross functional team, work with data, manage stakeholders, and deliver measurable outcome. So I have seen more leadership growth comes out of a well run improvement project than out of many classroom programs, because the business result is real. And the third is the knowledge sharing frameworks compresses the experience, so which is like structured sharing, lessons learned, best practice exchanges, expert networks. Means a 5-year professional can access 20 years of organizational wisdom, and that compasses the time it takes to build judgment, which is the the scarcest leadership ingredient. And the last one is together they create a visible capability pipeline. So certification ladders, community leadership roles, and project portfolios give the organizations an evidence-based view of who is ready for the next level, for richer than annual appraisal alone. So my message to GCC leaders: don't run these engagement activities on the side. Run them as your leadership pipeline, deliberately designed and measured.
Wow, wow, Prakash. You said it like great insights, Prakash. So strong knowledge practices create a solid foundation. This is what we have understood. But as you rightly said, start at that level. Generally, it starts from bottom to top, but as you said, it should come from top to bottom as well. Thank you so much for sharing that view. So let us move ahead with this exciting segment. Second question to Siddiqui. So, like with technology evolving rapidly, what skills do you believe will define the next generation of GCC talent and leaders? What's your thought on this? You're on mute, I think so. Siddiq, you're on mute.
Okay, so I'll stick to my older point as well, right? So we're always limited with the amount of knowledge that we possess. So that, okay, how do you ensure that your knowledge still moves forward, right? Which comes by, learning and reading primarily, right? You read research articles, you read books, right? Whichever the case may be, depending on the domain that you're working for and the function that you're working for. So the first one I would say is having the intent to learn continuously, right? So that is one important aspect that I would say attribute to the success of any leader for that particular matter. And then comes again, right? We will have to learn how to use AI, not just using AI, how to use AI, what type of AI to use, where to use what, right? Which means not just the fluency of AI, but higher level standards of what AI, where do I apply what type of AI, right? And where do I ensure that I put a human in the loop till we reach a particular level of maturity when we can remove that human in the loop, right? That understanding or a higher level understanding of AI is important, right? Then comes instead of just hiring just training them and setting up a team of team member to work on things, we'll have to start focusing on how can we one enable, right, to influence and in totality build high performance teams, right? Because unlike other organizations or other segments, right, GCC has a standard expectation that this particular work or this particular nature of tasks are going to be executed at a very high level. So, which means you definitely need high performing teams, right? Which means you'll have to make your strong entry point from hiring, right, till training and building the team and ensuring that you put the right set of people together, right? So that capability to build high performance team, right, would be very important for the learners. Similarly, how can we think strategically and think about outcome, right? Because a lot of things that we do, right, and our team might come up with wide variety of ideas, wonderful ideas, but some of these ideas, right, may not directly yield an outcome, right? So being outcome focused on taking the right strategic decision, right? I'm combining two things here, right? Strategic decision making and being outcome focused. So sometimes it works hand in hand, and sometimes it will work opposite to each other. But that's one of the important thing that would help make a better right, a GCC leader, right? So if I have to put other things, the cliched items would be what communication skills, collaboration, and all of it, right? So maybe I'm from the learning team, so I'm focusing on learning, but that is what will help. I strongly believe that, right, anything can be learned, any skill can be acquired once you have the learning mindset. So that's where I would stop. The last point maybe I would drive is innovation, which naturally comes to us, right? But ensure that we pick up the right idea, which will deliver outcome.
Thanks, Siddiqui, for sharing your cool insights, basically. But just a question, just Siddiqui, one small question, like which skills you think are most in demand today, but hard to find? If you want to say, I mean, it is most in demand, but hard to find.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. I'm trying to process that particular question.
Okay.
From see
Sorry,
from
this
my
is kind of just came in my mind. I'm
yeah,
asking.
that's okay. That's not a problem. Okay, it's an interesting question, right? See, from my experience, right, and my domain, I'm restricting it to my domain. What I find very hard, right, though it is high in demand and very hard, is critical thinking. See, a person is well experienced in doing and getting things done, right, and all of it, but everyone wants critical thinking because if someone says, okay, a word or a statement, and they're asking you to create a project around it, right? A person with critical thinking will be able to do it. But a person, even if they're a great expert, if they come with a lot of educational background, but lacks critical thinking, right? They will not be able to deliver it. Yes, if you give them a task, if you give them the instruction, they'll execute it wonderfully. But if you want a person to design something new with very minimal intervention or no intervention, okay, and you only give them a statement or a word and you go build a project around it, right? So I would say critical thinking is what everyone looks for, and it's very difficult to find. Sometimes it's very difficult to measure, okay, at an entry point as well.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Siddiqui, on that. So identifying the right skill is the key. This is what we have understood. Like, but let's move ahead. Like, how do we prepare our people through the right learning strategies? So my question to Rohini, how are your L&D and talent team redesigning learning strategies to prepare employees for AI enabled and kind of future focused role? Your thought on this, Rohini?
Thank you. I'm just going to build on what Siddiqui also said, because I think it's very important to have critical skills. Within L&D, traditionally, and we've stopped this probably last 1 year, traditionally, we would always have these training calendars, and the calendars are usually built based on the L&D's understanding of the business, and a lot of inputs coming from all the business units saying, hey, let's include this, deliver that. So a typical calendar kind of a scenario is completely shut off. We don't have calendars anymore today. And that is a very important thing to adopt, because it's difficult to move out of it, but moving out of it, it gives us so much freedom to actually sit where the leaders are sitting. And that's very important for L&D and HR to realize that we belong where the decisions are made. And that happens when we are looking at learning as a capability building system, because we have to have those conversations which are strategic. We have to have those conversations to understand where and what is important in the business today and what are the gaps. We were always doing a training need analysis. I'm not saying no, but the training need analysis also has to evolve. The way that we used to send out feedback forms have to evolve. We don't have to be the order takers and the request takers, but we have to also go back and be consultants, saying, I understand the business, I understand the future of skills, and these are my recommendations, puts us in a much different ball game. And this is exactly how we have to position ourselves as learning leaders. One of the philosophy or a strategy that we look at, especially in the world of AI, we need to do this, that we always look at pilot and scale, so that we are looking at small pods, we are looking at AI enabled workforce for a smaller cohort. We make sure there is rapid experimentation, there is role relevant communications that happen, there are communities that are formed, and then we look at a scalable pathway. So this way we are looking at every new learning when with a lot of strategy to why this is important for the organization. We build small pods and small cohorts. We run it first within those cohorts, and then we scale it. And this gives us so much confidence to have the right access created, and build everything from a piloting emerging skills, and then build on cohorts that move into a learning pods, smaller collaborative groups, and then we are moving into bigger groups. We're solving real problems. We are really talking about impact, and this is done using practical assignments in the way. We are creating a lot of recommendations. This also helps us in internal mobility, because we are looking at, also employees who are in bench today. We're looking at employees who could be placed in projects today. So learning team is actually going over and beyond just facilitating and coordinating for training and development or just a training program. So this gives us also a lot of opportunity to scale the skills as well as internal mobility overall. So in my view, L&D has to be a measurable business lever. And for that measurement, again, I want to go back to, I think, Siddiq, you mentioned a point that measurable has to be before the learning and after learning also. So I'm able to show today how the business has progressed using some of the learning levers. And this is not just a function that is a support function that runs programs, but a strategic function that is building readiness in future for the organization. So that is definitely giving me a lot of joy and puts L&D and HR in a much confident position in the organization.
Wow, Ronnie, you just said it I've seen, I've heard from many of my friends they just deploy it. But you just rightly said, do a POC, maybe sample with a group of people, then maybe we can deploy as a process for the entire organization. And putting that L&D cannot be just conducting sessions. They have to measure that. So I will pick maybe I can give a word kind of thing. L&D is no more an enabling function. They are growth partners now. They will play a
Absolutely.
role as a growth partners. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your view perspective with regards to what you are doing. So we are the conversation is building so much like we just close 60 minutes. We are left out with 30 minutes and one more segment to go. And we will be having question answer session as well. So my last question for the segment 3 to Kashyap, like many organizations invest in learning programs so much, but in your experience, what really helps employees grow into future leaders within a GCC? What's your thought on this?
Fantastic question. Also, very, also one of the favorite questions and very close to my heart. Of course, I'm sure Rohini and Siddiq will also agree to this, right? See, while formal learnings builds knowledge, there's no doubt about it, right? But actual leadership is something which people learn through experience, Ramani, right? So I, as a leader, as a human resource guy, followed or probably practiced it and also probably guide or probably tell my people is three things, first and foremost. First thing is, mentorship. So when I talk about mentorship, I remember the great scholar and philosopher from the Greek, that is Socrates, right? So Socrates, when his pupils used to come to him, could be like Plato, like, Asthenes or probably Xenophon, you know, there was always this interactive dialogue, right? He never answered to the questions directly, right? There's always interactive dialogue. And he always used to use one of my favorite terms called as why, three little word called why. So there was this why always, which he used to ask, right? So that people find the answers by themselves. I think that is what real mentorship is basically, right? So some things which are actually told by Socrates long before, and I think if we can start taking that particular thing, which because I have adopted and I have actually found results, great results in this particular thing, not answering directly, but enabling people to kind of find the solutions by themselves, right? And evaluate and see what is the best for the organization. No egos attached, but what is the best thing that is suited for the organization is what you do, right? And second most important thing, what I feel is, I think, I'm sure most of all have already added the points. The traditional classroom training of showing presentation slides, I think companies have moved away from that. But what I personally practice is, case-based learning. If I see there is actually a problem of decision making, there's actually a problem of teamwork, there's actually a problem of, let's say, coordination between people. So what I used to do is I used to create hypothetical cases with different names, right? And I used to put the case with them. I say, please read through this particular case. No preparation is required. I used to bring all of them into one classroom or into one training room. Obviously, every case has a yes, has a no. So I tell who are those people who support this, who don't support it. So separate them off and let them argue till the nth degree, right? And I, as a facilitator, will only write down those objective or those key things basically, right? So when I did the sessions, I understood that, knowledge is already there, right? It is just that you have to bring people and let them exchange, the thoughts. And that is where they learn themselves basically. And, trust me, in this way, it's fun. There is knowledge that is coming in and, less of facilitator talking and more of people interacting, right? If you do these sort of case-based trainings, it's only talking done by them. And at the end, maybe I just adding a little bit of English jargons, not more than that basically, right? And last but not least, also, the cross-functional training, which also helps, but then we need to be careful that you finish that cross-functional training in the 3 months of time. Because after 3 months, if you say cross functioning, it is merely impossible, right? It's very difficult to bring in. And so I think in the first 3 months, if the person can actually learn the answer to, for example, if I'm in HR, if I'm actually going and working in training for about, let's say, 15 days or probably 20 days, right? That is when I'll actually see what these guys are actually doing. Similarly, the L&D folks coming to HR, understanding the other side of it, right? Maybe quality, maybe knowledge management, etc., right? So if you combine these three things, Ramani, okay, one, the case-based learning, right? Next, the interactive dialogue technique of not answering, but enabling people to answer. Lastly, making them people do this functional, cross-functional training. I think that is when, I would probably say, in Hindi, that is when, a proper share is born, right? Proper share is actually born, who's ready to take over the throne.
Lovely, lovely, Kashyap. What a way. You just made it so simple. You just made it simple. Change your training from tell mode to discovery mode. This is what I've understood what you just said.
Yeah.
Make them discover their learning. This is what adult learning principle also says. They know things. We have to just kind of do a little tweaking kind of thing, which you do at the end by using those jargons, but they know that. Interesting, interesting, Kashyap. Lovely. So, my friends, colleagues, now we are moving to the most interesting segment, which in every CEO, maybe director will ask this question. So we are moving to segment 4, wherein we talk about measuring business impact and strengthening global collaboration. This is something wherever as an L&D or maybe any department, you create some proposal, the first thing the business is going to ask is, what is the business impact? So the true impact of GCC goes beyond efficiency and savings. This is what we are discussing from last 65 minutes. So today organization expect GCC to drive innovation, influence strategy, and create a measurable business value. So let me invite first Rohini on this. So looking ahead, Rohini, what do you think will distinguish high performing GCCs from the rest in terms of innovation, maybe business value and strategic influence? Your thought on this, Rohini?
So, Ramani, first of all, in all the networking events and wherever I'm getting to, have a good collaboration with individuals from other organizations, I'm seeing that I'm meeting such excellent and intelligent individuals at senior level. It's amazing to see the kind of self-taught leaders as well as leaders who have really invested in upskilling themselves. So it's commendable. To me, what would really differentiate in GCC is not just one person to the other, but it has to have a meaningful influence that is able to move the enterprise level direction. So that takes a lot more than one person, one group of people, but it has to be a language that the entire organization follows. Again, we're talking about measurable impact here. So can the entire group that presents to the board have a different way of presenting business value articulation? Do they understand what is business value articulation? Basic communication skills today can become such a blocker if people don't know how to articulate value, because for them, if they've done something technically that becomes valuable for them as an individual, but that may not make a difference to the board at an individual level, but as an enterprise, how did we move the business forward? What kind of pain are we solving? What kind of innovation are we proposing, which is going to solve some future problems also, or maybe cut cost, improve productivity, and those kind of things. But is that a part of my everyday language is very important. Are people really focusing on storytelling? But is the entire group focusing on storytelling and are able to do that in a flow? So while influence itself has a lot to do with data, it has a lot to do with the facts, the numbers that we present. It also has that empathy, it also has that storytelling which needs to be built within the organization. Lastly, customer experience is extremely important. Are we constantly looking at that, even with everything that we are moving to AI? What about customer experiences? Because transitions and transformations usually create a gap in customer experience. Are we constantly making sure that no matter how we are internally growing or evolving, we are making sure that our overall CSATs are at a particular benchmark, and that's also improving over time? Are we having enough conversations to make sure that those elements of business are not moved? I think that is strategic influence, which is extremely important. So overall value creation has to be from a communication point of view also, because this is one area that in the world of AI, we are kind of seeing change, because everybody today can draft an email and make it look beautiful. But you talk to the same person, you might see flavors of what they used to be, or even worse than what they used to be, because people are not talking to each other as much as emails are so beautiful today. So, how do we make sure that that human element of influence is still maintained? And we make sure that we are able to articulate the data we are representing. Use Claude, you create those beautiful dashboards, but also have that understanding of predictions, have the understanding of prescriptions. And are we really going that path to continue to be consultants of business and articulate everything that we are proposing to do with a very, very meaningful and a critical thinking approach in it?
Oh,
Over to
wow,
you,
Rohini, you
Rafi.
just said it, Rohini. Wow, what a way to say ki although AI is there, but don't blindly just depend on AI. Wow, what a way to express, Rohini, that. And that human touch you just said ki that is some way defaming kind of thing. The people who used to interact, conversation, that is stopped somewhere. That is happening on AI tool now. So thank you so much for giving that perspective, Rohini. So we are running a short of time. So my panel speakers, we need to give 10 minutes extra for FNAQ as well. So let us go ahead to my second panelist, Siddiqui. So question to you, like, how do you measure the success of GCC beyond traditional operational KPIs and demonstrate measurable business impact? Maybe quick thought on this, Siddiqui.
Okay, so I will still depend on my. Sorry, did I mute myself? Okay. See, I'll keep myself limited to my personal suggestions here, right? I'm not a great expert on this, but
Just checking,
when I
Siddiqui. I'm not able to hear. What about others? I'm so sorry for that. Is it
can you
clear,
guys hear?
Siddiqui?
Can you
We
Siddiqui
guys
is
hear
can
me
audible.
now?
hear.
Yeah, yeah.
We can hear.
I can hear.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Yeah. So with my limited knowledge, right, I'm going to give certain suggestions on what can and how can we measure and how that becomes strategic beyond our traditional KPIs. Okay, so one would definitely be coming from training. Speed to competency is a metric that right, or a KPI that I would definitely want to be on the top, because speed to competency helps us achieve faster value realization, or that's what is going to give us faster value realization. It can be tied to a new entrant into the organization or an existing person moving from one type of work to another type of work which requires a different skill. In those two contexts, what is the speed to competency, right? If we can measure that, that will be a very important measure. And how do you measure that? We can discuss that later if we have time. So the next one would be on the productivity improvement. Productivity is a traditional measure that we do, right? But then productivity improvement is something that we may have to constantly measure, because as a person who completed, let's say, 3 months, and as a person who completed 6 months, and so on, at every stages, my productivity needs to improve, right? And if I'm attending certain additional trainings on tools and technology that's going to make my work better and easier, right, my productivity should increase. So one of the important measure number two that I would recommend would be the productivity improvement, which directly correlates with business efficiency, right? The next one would be automation benefit realization, right? Bringing automation is something that a lot of us do, but what happens after that is we either forget or it fizzles down on tracking those measures, right? So we are supposed to capture how were we doing this before we automated this particular nature of work, and how did we automate it? And post automation, what are the impact that we are seeing, right? That measurement will have to be done, which will help us compute automation benefit realization, right? Because at the end of 1 year, right, someone is going to definitely ask you, what is the outcome of this automation? At that time, when you have to go back and scramble around for that data, it is impossible to get. Which means, right, I like the statement that Prakash did, capture knowledge from inception. Similarly, capture your performance even before you plan for a new automation. That way you will be able to track what were you doing, how did you do it, and what are we trending at right now basis that particular automation. It'll help us, right? And the last one that I would suggest is the capability readiness, because this is going to drive the future. This is going to measure, are we relevant in the next, let's say, 1 year, 2 years, and 5 years down the line, right? So capability readiness is something that we will have to measure. So how do we measure that? For example, we have a group of employees doing certain set of tasks, right? What is the next capability that's going to be in the market, right? We will have to be on the constant research. And once we can arrive at that particular list, right? And these are the areas. Sometimes it may or may not, but that's the risk and investment that we may have to make, right? So be ready, list down the capability that's required for the future, depending on your workflow or depending on what is the market trending to for our industry for which the GCC is set up here, right? Get that set, get the employees ready for it, which will drive the future. So these are some of the items that I would recommend.
Thanks, Siddiqui. Some thoughts are running around what you just said, but because of time constraint, I will freeze my question aside. Maybe at some other day we can have a discussion. So moving to the segment
So
4, third question to
I
Kashyap.
think I think people should start commenting on the YouTube video as well, where we may have to answer them.
Sure, sure, sure. That I'm sure Shiju will manage that. So Kashyap, in many GCCs, collaboration with global team is critical. So from your experience, if you can just throw some light, like what has helped build trust and stronger partnership across geographies? Your thought on this? A quick 45 second, a minute, please.
Question, Ramani, very important question. And also, I would rather say like need of the hour question, I would rather say, right? First and foremost, GCC guys or leaders will have to understand the actual meaning of two terms, advisory versus consulting. What is advisory and what is consulting? Now, advisory is basically advice and strategy. Here is what to do, right? But consulting is advice plus execution. That is, here is what to do, and we will do it for you. Please don't jump to consulting. Understand why the headquarters actually come to you. Did they come to you for advice or did they come to you for consulting, basically? Importantly, that is something which you have to understand very critically and corely, right? And you can't combine both. And you can't be over ambitious on the first call itself that you will do this and you will do that, right? I mean, stick to that. And secondly, don't have to talk about your legacy that you've done this, you've done that. This is what it is. This is a story. So it's all will be learned by them basically. They already know, right? So this is the second particular aspect. And thirdly, understand the GCC policy. I mean, India has a GCC policy. Every state has a GCC policy. Basically, understand commercial laws, understand employment laws, right? And tell only that is required, right? Now don't have to scare and petrify them of telling something that is not required at that juncture, because that will impact business coming in, right? Tell only what is actually required. And in the GCC world, be it anybody, be it a business guy or anybody, they will interact with multiple stakeholders. So it is not one stakeholder, two stakeholders, unlike service organizations. You talk to multiple stakeholders. Now, decision making is actually leveraged at so different levels that, once it is fine, he makes a decision whether to invest in US or whether to invest in India, right? So wait till he accepts you as a consultant, right? And all you can actually do is prepare yourself and prepare yourself. Let the learning not be stopped at any junctures, basically. Prepare yourself and it will come to you for sure. So combine all these three things, understand the law, tell only what is actually required, Don't jump into the consulting mode when he's still at the advisory mode, right? And take up all these things and again go slow is the this thing that is important and critical. And I think that's what makes great combinations and great teams to work.
Wow, Kashyap, what I can take it from your perspective is take your time. Don't be in hurry.
Yeah.
Things will come. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kashyap, on that. So let's go to the last question to Mr. Prakash. We are at the end of this panel discussion with an impactful last question to Prakash. So, Prakash, from a knowledge services and quality perspective, what KPIs best demonstrate that GCCs are delivering a sustainable business value, innovation, and continuous improvement? Your thought on this?
So the KPI question is, really a maturity question, I would say. So the early stage GCCs, they measure the effort, tickets closed, SLS met, utilization, and the mature GCCs, they measure the outcomes. So from a, knowledge and quality lens, I would organize, uh, the entire scorecard into, four layers. First one is the business value realized. So cost of, poor quality as a, percentage of operating cost, validated savings and revenue impact from improvement projects, and, cycle time reductions on processes the business actually feels. So these, translate our work into CFO language. Second layer is the innovation velocity. So the number of, improvement and AI use cases, ideas generated per 100 employees, the percentage converted into implemented solutions, and time from idea to deployment. So innovation is not just a, slogan. If you can measure its pipeline, like a like a sales funnel, right? And the third layer is the knowledge, health, and reuse. So content, currency, uh, findability scores, and my favorite, the reuse rate. How often a solution built in one geography or function, gets adopted by another. So reuse is the, clearest proof that a GCC is behaving like a hub and not collection of silos. And the last layer is the capability and the trust. So, the percentage of staff certified and actively applying Lean Six Sigma or digital skills, internal mobility into leadership roles, and stakeholder trust, scores from the global partners. So sustainable value ultimately, rests on people, the business, trust. So, and one discipline across all of it, co-own the numbers with the business. A benefit the CFO hasn't validated isn't a benefit. It's a claim. So when your KPIs are, signed off by the function you serve, the value conversion changes permanently. So that's my take.
Wow, Prakash, I think I must tell, and my other colleagues can tell you, that you have a very good career as a consultant in future, maybe. Yeah. So thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Ramani.
much for sharing that view, Prakash. Lovely. Thank you so much, Rohini, Kashyap, Siddiqui. Wow, it's 4:26. So, Siju, we are so sorry. Like we were so engrossed in the discussion, the way it was happening, this 90 minutes just went away. We didn't realize we spent a quality panel discussion for around 90 minutes. So over to you, Siju. Thank you so much, panelists from my side. Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you, Ramani, for being a great moderator as well. You've been very enthusiastic throughout. You kept the momentum going on.
very
Round of
Thank you so
applause
much,
from our
Rohini.
side. Fantastic, good.
Yeah.
Fantastic, nice.
Thank you
very
so
nice.
much. Yeah.
Thanks. Now, just to bring across, I'm just putting thanks to all our speakers Siddiq, Prakash, Rohini, Kashyap, and a moderator, Ramani, right, for giving your valuable insight, inputs, right? GCC are evolving very fast, and this discussion really help us to stay future ready We appreciate your time, your perspective, and we're also very thankful for our audience who have taken their precious time right from the busy schedule and making this event a very grand success. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, all of you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.